Corpse just wiped out an innocent. I'm taking him down. Bike. Activate crowd control.
Paramedics to my GPS. Multiple wounded and bodies for recycling.
Release the hostage, unharmed, and I guarantee you a sentence.
You got no fucking leverage!
Negotiations over.
In a cinematic era bloated with half-baked reboots and overproduced comic book adaptations, Dredd arrived like a slug to the face, lean, unflinching, and unapologetically brutal. Directed by Pete Travis, scripted by Alex Garland, whose fingerprints arguably extend well beyond that job title, and starring Karl Urban in the titular role, Dredd is a rare beast, a comic book film that favors tone, world-building, and character revealed through decisive, violent action. Set in the grim megacity of the future, a sprawling, festering, vertical hive of steel and sin known as Megacity 1, the film follows Judge Dredd and rookie Cassandra Anderson, played by Olivia Thirlby, as they respond to a triple homicide inside peach trees, a towering block ruled by drug kingpin Mama, a feral and riveting Lena Headey. What begins as a routine investigation and training session becomes a war zone when Mama locks down the block and orders its denizens to kill the judges. From that simple premise unfolds one of the most tightly executed action films of the 21st century, a grunge-drenched, bloody gauntlet of violence and judgment.
Juries, executioners, judges.
What the film understood was that its hero is a symbol. Dredd is the law personified, a monolithic presence whose character is revealed not through exposition, but through action, restraint, and grim inevitability. The brilliance of Garland's screenplay lies in how it externalizes character through conflict. Dredd's rigidity is challenged by Anderson's empathy, but the film never resorts to melodramatic speeches or ideological debates. Instead, we see who they are by how they fight, how they decide who lives and who dies, and how they navigate a city that is a reflection of their own inner extremes. It's action as character study, violence as thematic punctuation, and world-building through oppression. The film doesn't adapt a specific storyline from the 2000 AD comics, nor does it recreate panels or arcs, but rather channels the spirit of the source material, nailing the attitude, structure, satire, and tone that defines the character and his world. The Megacity one in the film is less a cyberpunk wet dream and more a brutalist nightmare, gritty, concrete, and decaying. The judges are not caped crusaders, but weary, battle-scarred civil servants in flak armor, carrying out the whims of a broken system. The satire is present in every brick of peach trees, a society where crime and despair have become so endemic that totalitarian justice is the only remaining option. Unlike the 1995 Judge Dredd film, which diluted the character with a needlessly convoluted backstory and comedic sidekicks, Dredd lets the character speak through silence, action, and the weight of his decisions.
My heart stops beating. The building blows.
This isn't a negotiation.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're breaking down the character and lore of Judge Dredd, the production history of the movie, the story and characters, as well as reviewing the film. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification icon to stay up to date on all the latest content, and click the like button to help appease the algorithm gods. Also, if you'd like to make a suggestion on what you want me to cover next, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below.
Mama is not the law. I am the law. You have been warned.
Judge Dredd was created in 1977 by writer John Wagner and artist Carlos Ezquerra, with editorial guidance from Pat Mills for the British anthology comic 2000 AD. Originally devised as a satirical response to authoritarianism and the growing police state mentality of the 1970s, Dredd's debut in 2000 AD issue number 2 was nothing short of seismic. Wagner brought a gritty sensibility, honed from years of writing British crime comics, while Ezquerra envisioned a fascist future where the law wore jackboots and helmets, with a world teetering on the edge of collapse. The duo birthed a character who would evolve into one of the most iconic and enduring figures in science fiction and dystopian storytelling. Unlike American superheroes, Dredd wasn't a beacon of hope. He was a walking critique of the systems we depend on, and the monstrous logic that can emerge when order becomes absolute. Few characters embody their world so completely, so unflinchingly as Judge Joseph Dredd. He is not merely the protagonist of his own stories, he is their axis, their executioner, and often their moral conundrum. Dissimilar to the Cape vigilantes of comics who fight crime as outsiders, Dredd is the system. Clad in leather and steel, face perpetually obscured by a visor, he doesn't just dispense justice, he personifies its most absolute authoritarian form. But to understand Dredd is to understand the world that necessitated him, a bloated, irradiated, post-nuclear landscape where law and order teeter on the brink of collapse and where freedom is both a memory and a liability. Judge Dredd does not operate out of compassion, nor does he seek redemption. He is the ultimate enforcer, unquestioning, unswerving, and uncorrupted. Dredd has no alter ego, no social life, no romantic entanglements. He is a product of breeding and brutal training, raised from childhood in the Academy of Law to serve a singular function, enforce the law no matter the cost. He is a weapon of statecraft, designed not to inspire but to deter. Dredd's powers and abilities are grounded in discipline, training, and genetic enhancement. He possesses peak human reflexes, encyclopedic legal knowledge, and tactical genius in both solo and battlefield operations. While not superhuman, his mental and physical conditioning elevate him beyond normal judges. He has fought and outlasted mutants, terrorists, cyborgs, corrupt judges, and eldritch horrors, not through plot armor, but sheer will, resourcefulness, and lethality. What makes him psychologically compelling is that he believes in the system. His rigidity is not performative, it is sincere. He is a true believer in the rule of law. Over time, this unwavering temperament is tested. Occasionally, Dredd questions the system. He has moments of philosophical hesitation, particularly in major arcs like America or The Day the Law Died, but these moments are never indulgent. They're quickly suppressed, buried beneath duty, and in this repression lies the brilliance of his character, a man too honorable to rebel and too aware to be comfortable. His arsenal includes the Lawgiver, a programmable handgun key to Dredd's DNA, capable of firing various ammo types, standard, heat-seeking, ricochet, incendiary, high-explosive, among others. And if anyone else tries to use it, it detonates. He also rides the Lawmaster, a heavily armored, AI-powered motorcycle equipped with grenade launchers, machine guns, and speech recognition tech. His helmet is equipped with a heads-up display, audio-video recording, infrared, gas filtration, and comms. He also usually carries a boot knife, stun gas, riot foam, and a multifunctional utility belt filled with every tool needed to enforce the law in an urban war zone. But his most potent weapon is psychological. Dredd's reputation alone often ends a confrontation before it begins.
Ajax.
To fully understand Dredd, we have to explore Megacity 1, a sprawling dystopian metropolis that stretches along the eastern seaboard of the former United States. With a population once exceeding 800 million, now closer to 400 million after successive calamities, Megacity 1 is less a city and more a vertical nation of endless decay, paranoia, and chaos. Its towers soar hundreds of stories high, some the size of cities unto themselves. Its streets overflow with unemployment, disease, mutation, and madness. 93% of the population is permanently unemployed, pacified by entertainment, narcotics, and the illusion of order. The rise of megacities began after the atomic wars, catastrophic nuclear conflicts that rendered vast patches of the Earth uninhabitable. In the US, 3 giant cities survived and expanded. Megacity 1 on the east coast, Megacity 2 on the west, later destroyed, and Texas City in the south. These cities became fortresses, both for civilization and authoritarianism. Outside them lies the cursed Earth, a radioactive wasteland crawling with mutants, marauders, and twisted remnants of pre-war humanity. To govern these mega hives, traditional law enforcement collapsed. Corruption, gridlock, and civil unrest demanded something more extreme. Thus was born the judge system, a militarized judiciary where specially trained officers wield the power of arrest, sentencing, and execution. The Hall of Justice became the central government. Parliament, courthouse, and police HQ all rolled into one. Democracy was suspended. Elections ended. The people were protected from themselves. Judges are not simply cops. They are a force designed to preempt chaos in a city where crime happens faster than paperwork. They are trained from childhood in the Academy of Law, a 15-year gauntlet of indoctrination and combat training. Few survive. Those who do are broken down and rebuilt into emotionless enforcers. The judge's authority is absolute. There are no trials, no appeals. A citizen can be sentenced on the spot for crimes ranging from loitering to murder. It is a system that maintains order through fear, not fairness. Dredd himself is often referred to as the most feared and respected of all judges. He is the benchmark. Even as newer judges begin to falter, bend, or philosophize, Dredd remains a constant. He does not want power, he does not seek glory, he wants to uphold the law, even when the law is broken. Megacity 1's citizens are simultaneously comic relief and tragic commentary. They are helpless, hysterical, impulsive, and often insane. The stress of urban living, overpopulation, and purposelessness has bred entire subcultures of absurdity. The fatties who ride motorized scooters due to their extreme obesity, the juvies, hyper-violent teens in gangs of aesthetic obsession, and the uglies who undergo surgery to look as grotesque as possible. In such a world, crime is less an anomaly than a natural byproduct of survival. The citizens both hate and need the judges. Their relationship with the law is akin to Stockholm Syndrome, hostile dependence. Among Dredd's enemies are the worst products of this world. The Dark Judges, extra-dimensional undead who believe life itself is a crime, stand as perhaps his most mythic foes. Led by Judge Death, they hail from Dead World, where crime was abolished by killing everyone. The crime is life, the sentence is death is their motto, and their appearance plunges Dredd's world into cosmic horror. Other foes include mutant warlords, rogue AI, psychic terrorists, tech cults, alien invaders, and even corrupt judges within the system itself. The genius of Judge Dredd is that it shapeshifts between tones. Some stories are razor-sharp satire of fascism and bureaucracy, like Citizen Snork or The Taxidermist. Others are grim sweeping epics like The Apocalypse War, which depicts nuclear genocide with chilling gravity. Then there are deeply personal arcs like America, which interrogates the price of freedom and the bloodiness of order. But always, Dredd remains the same. He is the immovable object, the last man standing, the bitter pill swallowed to keep the city from collapsing. Judge Dredd and the world of Megacity 1 is perhaps the most thorough and consistent dystopia in comics. It is not just a place where bad things happen, it is a mirror, held up not just to the supervillains, but to us. To systems that calcify, to justice that becomes a machine, to civilizations that grow so vast and complex they must outsource morality to men like Dredd. And yet there's something noble about him. He just wants the world to hold itself together for one more day, one more patrol, one more judgment. He is the law, but he's also its prisoner.
12 serious crimes reported every minute, 17,000 per day. We can respond to around 6%.
Inhabitants of peach trees. This is Judge Dredd. Mama is a common criminal. Any who obstruct me in carrying out my duty will be treated as an accessory to her crimes.
When I first came onto Dredd, the script we were given was in fact a storyboard script which had been drawn by Jock. It was a cartoon sketchy style, but it explained the movie very well in a visual terms, and it was a really great help for us developing it further.
We were very much in sync with them and trying to work out a way of bringing Dredd to the screen.
They were very clear about what they wanted. They wanted a gritty, real, brutal film, much like the original 2000 AD comic.
The original comic had a lot of different artwork in them, and there's no sort of set sort of look to Megacity. But what Alex wanted to do is make this feel like a very real.
In the scorched shadow left behind by the critical and commercial misfire of Stallone's Judge Dredd, the idea of revisiting the world of Megacity 1 sat dormant for years, buried under layers of Hollywood ridicule and fan disappointment. But in the decade that followed, as comic book adaptations exploded, a quiet movement began to stir, one that envisioned a darker, leaner, and more faithful return to the world of the judges. The road to Dredd began with screenwriter Alex Garland, best known at the time for scripting 28 Days Later and Sunshine, both directed by Danny Boyle. Garland, a longtime fan of Judge Dredd comics, harbored a deep admiration for the character's thematic potential and dystopian roots. Where many saw the franchise as irreparably tainted by its 1995 incarnation, Garland saw a path forward, a stripped-back, hard-edged reinterpretation that would jettison the bombast and lean into the harsh, uncompromising logic of Dredd's world. He envisioned something more akin to Die Hard meets Escape from New York, a self-contained urban siege film that captured the brutality and oppressive urbanism of the comics without succumbing to superhero cliches or blockbuster fluff. Garland resisted the urge to turn Dredd into a conventional origin story, wisely recognizing that Dredd's mythos is predicated on ideological constancy. His face is never seen, his emotions are rarely verbalized, his code does not bend. Instead of reinventing Dredd for quote-unquote modern audiences, Garland wrote him as he was always meant to be, a relentless instrument of state justice, cold but not cruel, robotic but not inhuman. The story's emotional arc would not come from Dredd himself, but from the world around him, particularly the young rookie Judge Anderson, whose empathy and psychic sensitivity served as the counterweight to Dredd's brutal absolutism.
We're all big Stallone fans, obviously loved him growing up. We never went to that. Our film was never a remake of that film. That film existed and we went back to the comic.
There's another writer who's John Wagner. John Wagner was very involved in making this film. He was shown the script regularly and he would change the dialogue if he thought I'd got it wrong. Karl actually did exactly the same. And so one of the ways it's different is that the creator of Judge Dredd had a hand in making sure this character was the way he should be.
Rather than a globe-trotting epic or convoluted conspiracy plot, Garland chose a tightly contained narrative set almost entirely within a single megablock. Peachtree's, a 200-story slum tower ruled by a drug-dealing matriarch and her army of thugs. This vertical setting provided the perfect vessel for the story's themes: dehumanization, authoritarianism, urban decay, and moral ambiguity. It also allowed the film to channel the aesthetic and tone of the comics on a modest budget by focusing on tension, atmosphere, and oppressive geometry rather than scale. As Garland refined the script, pre-production began to take shape under the guidance of DNA Films, the UK-based production company headed by Andrew MacDonald. The project was not without its challenges. Financing a hard-R, ultra-violent sci-fi film based on a property tarnished by a previous misfire was no small feat. The filmmakers leaned into the gritty sensibilities of District 9 and Children of Men, pitching the film not as a mainstream action blockbuster, but as a bold, hard science fiction thriller with edge. Reliance Entertainment and IM Global came aboard to handle international sales and financing, while DNA retained creative control over the final product, a crucial detail that allowed Garland's uncompromising script to remain largely intact. The focus then turned to casting. Karl Urban was the first and only series contender for the role of Judge Dredd. A lifelong fan of the character, Urban understood what was required: a complete subjugation of ego. Dredd would never remove his helmet, he would never smile, he would never wink at the audience. Urban's performance, therefore, would need to be channeled entirely through body language, vocal modulation, and presence. Few actors would willingly sign on for a lead role that required hiding their face for the entire runtime, but Urban embraced it as a challenge and a badge of authenticity. His commitment to remaining faithful to the character, even mimicking the iconic scowl of Dredd's comic appearance, would become one of the film's defining strengths.
Yeah, so right from the get-go, we were all on the same page. We were in sync as to what it was that we were trying to create, the authenticity and honesty of what we were trying to do. So for me as an actor, a huge challenge. Then it becomes a question of how do I convey as much as I can without the benefit of my eyes? And that's when, other elements take on and gain a greater significance. The voice becomes very important. Body language, how you do what you do informs the audience so much as to what's going on. The humor, that was one of the elements that I always really loved in Dredd, was that dry, wry humor. You're not quite sure of sometimes if he's, just those sort of dry one-liners. So it was very important for us to find the opportunities to inject that. And, I have to say it's really amazing when what comes across. And I feel very kind of blessed that we had such an amazing team working on this.
Opposite Urban, the role of Judge Anderson was awarded to Olivia Thirlby, whose natural empathy and understated strength made her an ideal foil for Dredd. Anderson, a psychic rookie with doubts about the system, served as the emotional anchor. She was the character who could react to the horrors of Megacity 1 in a way the audience could understand, who would flinch when Dredd passed judgment. Thirlby brought a quiet complexity to the role, balancing Anderson's vulnerability with a growing steeliness that gave the film its soul. She was not just a sidekick, nor a romantic interest, but a lens. Through her, we could see Dredd as a force of nature. The third and final pillar of the film's cast was Lena Headey as the drug lord Mama, a former prostitute turned brutal gang leader whose narcotic empire formed the core conflict of the story. Headey, fresh off her rising success as Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones, imbued Mama with a sadistic weariness that made her feel both terrifying and strangely grounded. Garland wrote Mama not as a cackling supervillain, but as a woman who'd clawed her way to the top of a crumbling skyscraper and ruled it with ruthless practicality. Headey's performance was subdued, radiating a feral intelligence that matched the tone of the film perfectly. As pre-production entered full swing, Pete Travis was hired to direct the film, though much has been written about Garland's heavy involvement in the production, editing, and creative decision-making. But at this stage, Travis brought to the table a journalistic eye for gritty realism, having previously directed Endgame and Vantage Point. Combined with cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle, who'd worked with Garland on 28 Days Later and Slumdog Millionaire, the production assembled a creative team geared toward capturing tactile, grounded science fiction in a way that felt distinct from the slick, digital aesthetic dominating genre cinema at the time. The production design, led by Mark Digby, leaned heavily into brutalist architecture and utilitarian decay. Megacity 1 was imagined as a failed future, not a gleaming utopia, but a concrete prison where humanity was barely holding on. Graffiti, rust, flickering lights, and oppressive interiors dominated the visual language. Every inch of the film's design, from the scorched leather of Dredd's armor to the grimy hallways of peach trees, was aimed at immersing the audience in a society held together by duct tape and violence.
We wanted to shoot Megacity, and we wanted our foreground for Megacity, as much as possible, we wanted that to be real and shot on real location. So we were looking for a sort of fairly grungy city.
We were drawn to Johannesburg because it felt to us that it had this sort of grid structure to its streets that perhaps we could pass that off as a kind of New York alternative. You know,
The signs look similar, the road markings, the traffic lights. So there's not a lot of dressing to do, and actually we didn't do hardly any, so we could just film a foreground in Johannesburg or Cape Town and it will look like an American city.
Once the pre-production stage was complete, with Alex Garland stripped-down script approved, Karl Urban and Olivia Thirlby locked in, and DNA Films securing financial backing from IM Global and Reliance Entertainment, the film moved into full production in late 2010. From the outset, Dredd was a logistical and aesthetic gamble, one that sought to blend gritty realism with stylized comic book brutality, all while operating under the constraints of a relatively modest $35 to $45 million budget. Filming began in November 2010 and primarily took place in Cape Town, South Africa, with a newly built Cape Town film studio serving as the base for soundstage work. This location was chosen both for budgetary reasons and for its capacity to house large interior sets that could double for Megacity 1's monolithic, dystopian megablocks. South Africa's government also provided tax incentives, and the locale offered enough production flexibility to recreate a futuristic, decaying metropolis in a single contained environment.
We looked at a lot of these kind of huge crime-ridden metropolises in the world, and we looked at, Mexico City and some pictures from Sao Paulo, and Johannesburg was one of those cities, and for various reasons, language, it's quite a good place to go flight-wise, there's a crew there, and also particularly Andrew, my producing partner, became quite friendly with Shelto Copley, who obviously was the star of District 9. So he also helped introduce us to some of the South Africans who'd worked on District 9, who were then part of Dredd.
The production leaned heavily into verticality. Megacity 1 was portrayed not as a Blade Runner-esque neon jungle, but as a brutalist nightmare of concrete, decay, and sensory overload. Mark Digby focused on making everything feel physically oppressive. Walls were thick, shadows long, and industrial design reigned supreme. Every location within the Peachtree's tower was built from scratch or modified from real-world structures, lending an authentic texture to the environments. Graffiti, rot, and invisible wear were everywhere, reinforcing the idea that Megacity 1 was not a city in decline. It was a city long past saving.
There was a lot of 70s brutalist architecture there anyway. There's one shot panning across a cityscape, and we have one big mega block right in the foreground. The rest is just buildings added away in the background. The rest is left as is, and it looks Dredd-like, concrete, brutal, hard. and good.
So what we're doing is we're actually integrating our CG into a real environment, and it helps us to ground our visual effects very much in the real world.
To capture the harsh, unforgiving tone of the script, cinematographer Anthony Dodd Mantle employed a range of innovative techniques. The film was shot digitally using the Phantom Flex and Red MX cameras, enabling them to shoot in high-resolution slow motion at frame rates of up to 4,000 FPS. These ultra-slow motion sequences were integral to portraying the effects of the fictional narcotic slow-mo, which causes users to perceive time at 1% its normal speed. Far from being a mere gimmick, these sequences became visual centerpieces, flashes of brutal beauty that contrasted sharply with the gritty realism of the rest of the film. To simulate the disorienting effects of the drug, the team applied shimmering lens flares, glittering dust particles, and hypersaturated lighting, creating a dreamlike visual texture that briefly elevated the film into surrealism.
I mean, this isn't true of everybody, but you could say that if you're in a hard place in your life, you take heroin to escape it, and so that a hard existence becomes easier for a brief period of time. And one of the things about very extreme slow motion is that it can make almost anything look beautiful and hypnotic and graceful. Slow-mo would give you moments of beauty and peace and tranquility. Even if there's someone getting a bullet pushing through their cheek and pulling out their teeth, there's something about it that would hypnotize you, and you'd find it beautiful in the grip of this drug. And so there's a rationale for it. It's not just truly a rationale. It's not just like a cinematic device because slow-mo can make violence look balletic. In fact, we're actually trying to take it away from that ballet and make it revealing in other kinds of ways.
The action sequences themselves were choreographed with brutal efficiency. There were no balletic fight scenes, no CGI-laden spectacles, no superhero antics. Every shot fired had weight, every injury consequence. Dredd's movements were calculated, minimal, and devoid of flair. His lawgiver was used tactically rather than flamboyantly. This fidelity to the comic's emphasis on precision and lethality made the violence in Dredd feel more grounded and impactful.
Further preparation then, was in South Africa, learning to ride the Lawmaster, learning to move tactically. We had these ex-military guys who were training us to, move like proper military guys would. And we did this really quite cool exercise where we were on set and we had airsoft pistols that were mocked up as lawgivers. And we would go through the set and we would have stuntmen with air pistols shooting at us and we'd be shooting at them. And, you know when you're screwed up pretty quickly when you get an airsoft pellet in the face.
While production progressed smoothly on the surface, tensions began to arise between Pete Travis and Alex Garland. According to reports that emerged after filming wrapped, Garland became heavily involved in the process, so much so that industry insiders began referring to him as the film's de facto director. In fact, Travis was allegedly locked out of the editing room entirely at one point, leading to rumors that Garland would receive co-directing credit. While these disputes were never officially resolved in public and the final credit remained with Travis, the creative community increasingly viewed Dredd as Garland's vision. This behind-the-scenes friction, while troubling, may ironically have preserved the film's cohesion. Garland's involvement ensured that the film's tone, structure, and stylistic choices aligned with his original script. Scenes were trimmed for pace, action beats were restructured to maximize tension, and character moments, especially between Dredd and Anderson, were carefully modulated to retain emotional weight without violating the stoic integrity of the protagonist.
Things are very black and white in Dredd's world, but through meeting Anderson and assessing her to see if she's qualified or not to become a judge, there's quite a subtle yet very important shift within the way that Dredd views the world, because he does something at the end of this film that he would never have done in the beginning.
Post-production was an intensive process, particularly given the ambitious nature of the slow-mo sequences. Visual effects were handled by Prime Focus, who dedicated considerable resources to rendering the hallucinogenic impact of the drug, as well as the film's numerous blood-spattered shootouts. The high frame rate footage required massive storage and processing power, and each frame had to be meticulously color graded to enhance the jewel-like brilliance of the slowed-down world. The score, composed by Paul Leonard Morgan, was another key element in defining the film's identity. Avoiding the grand orchestral sweep typical of superhero films, Leonard Morgan crafted an industrial electronic soundscape laced with distortion, pulse-driven rhythms, and minimalist motifs. Synthesized drones and guttural bass lines underscored Dredd's relentless march through the tower, while ethereal, warbling tones accompany the slow-mo scenes. The music mirrored the film's structure, stripped down, harsh, and relentlessly forward-moving, with moments of eerie beauty.
We did some previews early on where we put together a whole slow-mo sequence, and it kind of worked with music and sound effects. It became quite interesting. It was just a question of then designing the shots.
I kind of developed this multi-layer section in slow motion. The idea is not just to shock people and say, wow, it's to try and give them complex images, sounds, and movements that mess with their brains so they feel they're looking at something they don't really want to look at, but it's strangely beautiful, so they look. And I find that very interesting artistically to explore that. And 3D is interesting for me in that respect.
Despite the creative clarity behind Dredd, the film faced an uphill battle when it came to distribution. Released in September 2012, it was marketed heavily around its 3D presentation, a decision that would prove divisive. While the 3D effects in the film, especially the slow-mo sequences, were innovative, the heavy promotion of this format turned off many potential viewers, particularly those fatigued by the 3D boom of the early 2010s. Marketing efforts were minimal and often tone-deaf as well. Trailers failed to communicate what set Dredd apart from its 1995 predecessor, and some failed to convey the film's grounded, brutal tone. The film was also released mostly in 3D. As a result, in the US, Dredd grossed just $13 million, with a worldwide total of approximately $41 million. It was, by all accounts, a box office disappointment. But the story didn't end there. Critically, Dredd fared significantly better than its commercial numbers suggested. Reviewers praised the film's unwavering commitment to tone, its efficient script, and its performances. Over time, it became a cult favorite, with home media sales skyrocketing. Dredd became one of the top-selling Blu-rays of 2013 in the UK and US, and fans launched numerous online campaigns urging studios to greenlight a sequel. Although those campaigns were ultimately unsuccessful, they underscore the audience's hunger for more stories set in this brutal, uncompromising world.
It obviously looks like it's going to be a blockbuster. Are you hoping for sequels?
We'll see a sequel if we gross above $50 million in the US. It's a simple financial equation. We're an independent movie. We sold the film to various territories. It's maths where the financiers are concerned, essentially. And if we reach a particular target, then yeah.
The year is 2080, and the world is now a fractured, irradiated hellscape known only as the Cursed Earth. A scorched no-man's land where nothing green grows and everything screams entropy. Against this backdrop of planetary decay, civilization clings to life on the East Coast in Megacity 1, a brutalist megaslum stretching from Boston to Washington, D.C., stitched together by miles of cracked concrete, corroded steel, and the promise of near-constant violence. Home to over 800 million people and averaging 17,000 crimes per day, Megacity 1 is a riot. The air hums with surveillance drones. The skyline is pierced by vertical monoliths known as megablocks, each a self-contained urban ecosystem where thousands live, kill, and die. The very architecture reflects the city's soul, overbuilt, overburdened, and collapsing under its own weight. Between the megablocks are the mega-highways, arteries suffocating in smog and chaos. There is no pastoral escape here, no frontier dreams. Beyond the walls lies only nuclear desert and silence. Inside the city, the only thing louder than the gunfire is the thrum of paranoia. In this world, justice is not a slow, deliberate process, it's a bullet. With crime outpacing the system's ability to respond by a wide margin, law enforcement was outsourced to a new institution, the judges. Dispatched from the Hall of Justice, they are the only firewall preventing total collapse. The system is fully mechanized. Surveillance cameras feed AI processors which flag potential crimes, directing judges to hot zones with efficiency. The result is a city policed like a war zone, and in a city this sick, only the most clinical immune system can survive. From the opening aerial shots of an endless urban sprawl, the environment tells you everything. The world is overcrowded, underfunded, and teetering on the brink of ruin. Crime is rampant, the judges are overwhelmed, and every corridor pulses with grime and tension. The production design leans into realism. Mega blocks don't feel like a futuristic palace. They feel like low-income housing projects that are stretched into the sky. The lighting is oppressive. The colors are muted. Every element reinforces the idea that this is a world beyond saving, and that the judges are a stopgap, not a solution. This is where we find Judge Dredd hunting down perps without backup.
Do you require backup?
No.
He is an unyielding symbol of law in a society where chaos has overtaken civility. Dredd is not a man so much as an institution. His jaw granite hard, his voice sandpaper rough, his moral compass laser-focused. He embodies the unbending principle of the judges, deliver justice swiftly and without compromise. There is no room for subjectivity or emotional indulgence in his worldview, and Urban captures this with a performance of remarkable restraint.
Life without parole? That's a deal you offered?
Only if you comply.
Karl Urban's portrayal is a masterclass in minimalist acting. In his hands, Dredd is not emotionless, but emotionally disciplined. His slight head tilts, dry sarcasm, and moments of thoughtful silence reveal a man not devoid of feeling, but governed by duty. The performance is not a parody of the comic, but a distillation of its essence. Serious, focused, and lethally precise.
If you do not comply, the sentence is death.
After hunting down perps that had no regard for human life with a grim detachment, Dredd, our philosophical constant, encounters the catalyst that challenges his worldview. Cassandra Anderson, a rookie judge candidate with one foot in the human world and the other in the uncanny. Orphaned at 7, she was born in the shadow of a nuclear blast zone, a mutation that gifted her with immense psychic ability. She can read thoughts, glimpse memories, and feel intentions with uncomfortable clarity.
I can feel anger and control.
Despite failing her judge aptitude test by a narrow margin, Anderson is thrust into active duty training under special instruction from a chief judge who believes they can no longer afford to ignore such an asset.
As I said, the judges are losing the war for this city.
Anderson isn't just powerful, she's the most powerful psychic the Academy has ever seen. Thus, Dredd is assigned a seemingly routine evaluation mission. Take Anderson into the field, assess her performance, and determine if she's judge material. The standards are impossibly high. Disobedience, incorrect sentencing, or being disarmed even once is grounds for automatic failure. Worse still, statistically, 1 in 5 rookies don't make their first day.
Sink or swim. Chuck her in the deep end.
It's all a deep end.
Thirlby's Anderson is the emotional and philosophical counterbalance to Dredd's iron rigidity. She is not only a narrative surrogate for the audience, she's also the embodiment of what justice could be if tempered by empathy. Her arc traces a trajectory from uncertainty to clarity, and Thirlby plays this beautifully, layering vulnerability with increasing competence. Anderson's powers are not just a gimmick, they serve as a tool for moral interrogation. She sees not only what people do, but why they do it. Her abilities put her in closer proximity to human suffering than Dredd allows himself, and this sharpens her resolve. The film smartly avoids making her naive or sentimental. Her compassion is active, not passive. She makes hard choices. She kills when she must, but also saves lives when she can.
Judgment.
Vagrancy, 3 weeks ISO cubes, but prioritize murders?
Correct.
The setup then is lean and razor sharp. It's not about saving the world, it's about surviving the day. And in true Dredd fashion, the film will test its characters not through exposition or contrived dilemmas, but through action. With slow-mo flooding the streets and gang rule transforming entire blocks into militarized fiefdoms, Dredd and Anderson are about to be tested in peach trees, a 200-story mega-block ruled by a sadistic gang matriarch known as Mama. What begins as an evaluation soon escalates into a war for survival, with Dredd and Anderson trapped inside a building where escape is impossible and backup is never coming. And that ultimately is the brilliance of Dredd's premise. By shrinking the city-wide nightmare down to a single vertical climb, the film becomes a brutal microcosm of the larger society. Everything Megacity 1 represents, law versus chaos, control versus anarchy, is distilled into one self-contained death trap. And through it all, character is revealed not through speeches or moralizing, but through how people act under pressure.
This is Mama. If I hear of anyone helping the judges, I will kill them and the next generation of their family.
Open up. Negative, Judge. You're already dead.
Peach Trees, like much of Megacity 1, is not a place people live, it's a place they survive. A towering slum housing 75,000 residents, it stands as a self-contained ecosystem of poverty, crime, and despair. Half its residential levels have officially been designated slums, and with an unemployment rate clocking in at a grim 96%, it's no wonder the building has the highest crime rate in Sector 13. If Megacity 1 is a decaying organism, then Peachtree's is the infected boil no one wants to lance. The judge system, overstretched and understaffed, has no time for nuance. It reacts to blood, not bruises, and blood is what draws Dredd and his psychic rookie partner Cassandra Anderson into the belly of this brutalist beast.
Toss him over the balcony.
Hit him with a little slow-mo first.
High above the atrium of Peachtree's, a message is being sent the only way the city listens, through spectacle and violence. Drug lord Madeline Madrigal, known to all simply as Mama, has just executed 3 traitorous dealers, flaying their skin off, dosing their broken bodies with slow-mo, and having them hurled down 200 stories like a perverse art installation.
It's a coal burn from a slow-mo inhaler. Guess it felt like a long way down.
Mama is more than just the top of the criminal food chain. She is the food chain. Once a prostitute from the notorious S9 Pleasure District, she's a woman forged in fire and sharpened by trauma. After her pimp sliced her face open, she bit off his manhood and took over his operation, never looking back. Since arriving in Peachtree, she's done what judges claim to do but rarely succeed at. She brought order to chaos. By wiping out the 3 gangs that once operated inside the block, Mama created her own empire. Now she owns all 200 floors. She is queen, warden, and god of this vertical kingdom. In Mama, we get a villain whose menace comes from cold-blooded control. Lena Headey plays her as a woman who no longer cares about appearances or prestige. She's not out for power's sake. She's holding on to it with bloodied hands because letting go would mean annihilation. Mama is chilling because she has nothing to lose and has no illusions about the world. Her cruelty is systemic, her expressions almost catatonic. She watches people die with the same expression she'd use to flick a cigarette. In many ways, she's the inverse of Dredd. Where he represents imposed order, she embodies nihilistic autonomy.
I tried to do this clean, but they wouldn't let me, so now we do it messy.
Fire!
When Dredd and Anderson arrive to investigate the triple homicide, they discover a drug den on level 39 where the victims were registered. Inside, Dredd executes his duties with his usual surgical efficiency, while Anderson scans the minds of those present. Among this scum is Kay, a low-tier enforcer that Anderson determines helped kill the victims under Mama's orders. Wood Harris brings a casual cruelty to Kay. He isn't a master criminal, he's a product of this world. Angry, opportunistic, and nihilistic. Harris makes Kay compelling without making him sympathetic. There's a glint of intelligence beneath his bravado, but also cowardice. He isn't loyal to Mama so much as terrified of her. That's enough for Dredd, who decides Kay's coming in for questioning. But Mama, fearing what Kay might reveal under interrogation, activates the building's blast shields, sealing off Peachtree's from the outside world. It's done under the guise of a security lockdown, but Dredd and Anderson are now effectively locked inside with an army of killers, and Mama has just put a bounty on their heads. What follows is a war of attrition. The judges begin their ascent, floor by floor, body by body, as Mama's men and all clans in the building come in waves. Gunfights erupt in corridors as civilians scurry like rats. Dredd is unyielding, every shot is lethal, every judgment absolute. Anderson, too, quickly hardens under fire. On the 76th floor, Mama escalates things. A squad of her men wheel out Vulcan cannons, high-caliber rotary guns typically used to destroy vehicles, and turn them on the entire level of Peachtree's. The apartment walls are shredded like wallpaper, and innocents are torn apart in the crossfire. Dredd and Anderson barely survive by breaching an external wall and calling for backup from the side of the building. Mama then sends her Lieutenant Caleb to confirm if they're dead. Dredd, however, doesn't just survive, he sends a message. When Caleb reaches them, Dredd throws him off the same atrium the 3 dealers fell from in full view of her. It's not just revenge, it's psychological warfare, and Mama receives it loud and clear. By now, the judges have become insurgents in hostile territory. Every kill they make sends ripples through Mama's iron grip. Every flaw they clear is a domino toppling her regime. But beneath the bloodshed lies the film's true genius, character revealed through action. Dredd, cold and merciless, shows glimpses of adaptability and tactical creativity. Anderson, vulnerable and empathetic, becomes a force of nature. And Mama, cruel and commanding, proves that power built on fear is also riddled with a few cracks.
Open the blast door, right now.
Will do, sir. I'm on it right now. Thank you.
In this gauntlet of bullet-filled concrete, morality is tested. Can justice survive in a world designed to crush it? Can empathy coexist with absolute authority? These aren't questions the film answers through dialogue. They're carved into the walls with every ricochet, every scream, every life spared or taken.
Sir, if you leave it to me, he doesn't have to speak.
After surviving Mama's ruthless attempt to annihilate them, Dredd turns his fury toward Kay, using blunt force and unfiltered rage. Anderson, however, approaches from a different vector. Her psychic abilities cut through the lies like a scalpel. By diving into Kay's mind, she confirms what's becoming increasingly clear. Peachtree's isn't just a fortress, it's a factory. Mama is the primary producer and distributor of slow-mo flooding the sector, which is why she didn't want the judges to leave. Peachtree's is her castle, her lab, and her throne room, all protected by a hive of killers. While Anderson suggests avoiding detection and waiting for backup, Dredd, ever the embodiment of judicial determinism, proposes something radical. They continue attacking instead. Judges don't run, they pursue. But justice doesn't come easy in Peachtree's. When judges Fulton Guthrie arrive in response to the call for backup, Mama's tech wizard, an enslaved hacker played with robotic detachment by Dumal Gleason, uses his access to intercept them. He convinces the pair that a fire has resulted in a software malfunction, forcing them to stay put for the time being. As Mama's hacker, Dumal Gleason plays a man both physically and psychologically broken. With his eyes replaced by crude implants and his speech robotic and uncertain, the techie is a haunting representation of what happens when intelligence is subjugated to brutal force. He doesn't have many lines, but Gleason infuses every moment with repressed fear and a kind of ethical paralysis.
You better get control fast, or I'm slapping you with an obstruction of justice charge.
As Dredd and Anderson push onward, they're confronted by a pair of desperate teens, barely old enough to shave, but already radicalized by the concrete jungle around them. The standoff is messy, chaotic, and serves as the perfect distraction for Kay to disarm Anderson and take her hostage. His escape route leads him upward, dragging Anderson with him toward Mama's control suit, unaware that he's just signed his own death warrant.
You're so fucked.
Mama then calls in reinforcements of her own, 4 corrupt judges, Lex, Kaplan, Chan, and Alvarez. They relieve Fulton Guthrie, walk past the threshold of decency, and become instruments of Mama's will. The very people sworn to uphold the law now serve its antithesis. Their arrival is a great narrative turn, showing how the rotten Megacity 1 isn't just at the very bottom. Each one represents a different facet of corruption. Lex is cold and transactional, Chan is deceptive, Kaplan plays on plausible deniability, and Alvarez is the muscle. Despite the odds stacked against him, Dredd hijacks a terminal and announces to Peachtree's that he is the law, and that anyone that obstructs his pursuit of Mama will be sentenced to death. This is right before ambushing a group of killers with incendiary rounds. Sensing something is off, Dredd doesn't hesitate when he encounters Judge Chan. The man doesn't ask about Anderson's condition. That detail alone betrays his allegiance, and Dredd puts him down. The uniform means nothing without the oath. Elsewhere, Kay's attempt to execute Anderson using her own lawgiver backfires spectacularly. These weapons are coded to their users, and Kay learns the hard way as the weapon self-destructs, blowing his arm off. Anderson reclaims her freedom, and when she crosses paths with Kaplan, she reads her treacherous thoughts like a book and guns her down without hesitation. Dredd meanwhile survives a brutal firefight, but is wounded by Lex, taking a bullet to the abdomen. After Dredd takes down Alvarez, Lex, the last and most dangerous of the traitors, prepares to deliver the final blow, but Dredd stalls him long enough for Anderson to arrive and save him. Her return isn't just timely, it's symbolic. The cadet, a representation of the future generation of judges, saves him. The student preserves the system just a while longer.
Ready? You look ready.
With the judges reunited, they obtain access to Mama's sanctum via her reluctant techie. Mama, defiant to the end, reveals a dead man's switch strapped to her wrist. If her heart stops, explosives will detonate, collapsing peach trees and erasing everyone in it. But Dredd, unflinching as ever, deduces that the detonator signal won't be able to reach through the reinforced concrete on the lower floors. So he issues a sentence. With poetic cruelty, he forces Mama to inhale the time-warping slow-mo and throws her from the top floor. As her perception of time slows to a crawl, she falls through the atrium she once used to send messages in blood, and her kingdom becomes her tomb. When the smoke clears, Anderson hands in her badge. In her mind, she failed the test. She was disarmed and captured. But Dredd sees something else. She showed measured judgment, compassion, and also ruthlessness when needed. She passed not because she mirrored Dredd, but because she balanced him.
How does she do?
She's a pass.
One of the film's most remarkable achievements is how fully it reveals character through behavior and action, not just dialogue. Judge Dredd himself is a monument to consistency, a man whose morality is absolute, whose tone never wavers, whose face remains hidden. Karl Urban understands this completely, refusing to let Dredd become a parody. He moves with the authority of a soldier, speaks with the weight of law, and yet through sheer physical presence, we come to understand everything we need to know about him. Rather than offering lengthy monologues or backstories, the film shows us who Dredd is by how he responds under pressure. When confronted with impossible odds, he doesn't retreat or pontificate, he makes tactical decisions. When innocents are caught in the crossfire, he ramps up his offensive. When faced with corrupt judges, he doesn't moralize, he acts. The sum of these decisions builds a portrait of a man who is a moral constant in a decaying world. That stoicism becomes his character arc, not a transformation, but a reaffirmation of purpose.
We're a kilometer above ground. What do you figure the range is on that thing?
The same is true of Anderson, who provides the emotional contrast to Dredd's inflexibility. Her powers allow her to access the minds of those around her, offering brief glimpses into their interior worlds the script otherwise keeps hidden. Her compassion doesn't soften the world, but it does offer an alternative form of justice, one that sees the individual behind the crime, and we learn this not through exposition, but through her choices under duress. When she shows mercy, when she pulls the trigger, and when she refuses to abandon the mission.
Lower your gun, rookie. I'm your backup.
Violence in Dredd is not stylized for pleasure. It's methodical, brutal, and consequential. Every bullet has weight. Every kill means something. The film forces the audience to reckon with the nature of justice in a world where due process is a luxury. Is the system broken, or is it simply the only thing standing between order and oblivion?
Dredd's harshness, if you like, is one of the compelling things. It's something we kind of can rail against, but we actually need, and we kind of love to hate him. And that makes for interesting stories. You know, it's his determination to do the right thing. It's his single-minded focus on justice.
He represents the law and unflinching. He has ethics, but at the same time, he's the embodiment of a fascist justice society.
You know, as much as the stories were about Judge Dredd, they were really about what it is like to live in this world. And I think that, you know, in this film that Alex Garland's done a really wonderful job of showcasing those people.
All of this works because every aspect of Dredd is aligned toward a singular goal, telling a story with clarity and conviction. Karl Urban, Olivia Thirlby, and Lena Headey deliver grounded performances in an outlandish world. The pacing is tight, the stakes are clear, and the script is razor sharp. Even the sound design contributes to character. The clunk of Dredd's boots, the scream of the Vulcan cannon, the eerie distortion of slow-mo perception. Each element is intentional. What elevates Dredd beyond so many of its contemporaries is not just the execution of these individual technical elements, but their unyielding coherence. Cinematography, sound, production design, editing, and music all work toward the same goal, to create a film that is oppressive, efficient, and brutally grounded. It's a movie that drags you through the ironclad machinery of a broken society and forces you to confront the rot. Dredd is not just technically competent, it is technically precise, and every decision in its construction reveals the filmmaker's sharp understanding of how to turn limitation into aesthetic identity.
Get back! Alex!